The automatic doors of Fresh Fare Market slid open with a sterile whoosh, releasing a blast of air-conditioned air that smelled of bleach and wilted lettuce. For Maya, a 28-year-old architect, it was the last stop on a long, exhausting Friday. Her car held the simple ingredients for a quiet dinner: salmon, asparagus, a bag of jasmine rice, and a single good bottle of Pinot Noir. She navigated to the 10 items or less lane, her mind already at home, feet aching in her heels. The cashier, Brenda, a woman in her late 50s with a pinched face and a perpetual frown, was scanning items for the customer ahead with the speed of a sloth on sedatives. When it was Maya's turn, she began unloading her cart onto a conveyor belt with a polite smile. Brenda's eyes, small and sharp like a bird's, scanned her, then the items. She picked up the bottle of Pinot Noir, her lips pursed. "ID," Brenda stated, her voice flat and demanding. "Of course," Maya said, reaching into her wallet. She handed over her driver's license. Brenda took it, holding it between her thumb and forefinger as if it were contaminated. She scrutinized the photo, then Maya's face, then back to photo. "This isn't you," Brenda declared, dropping the license onto the counter with a dismissive clatter. Maya blinked. "I'm sorry? Yes, it is. That's my current license." "The picture doesn't look anything like you," Brenda insisted, her voice rising, drawing the attention of the people in the other lanes. "Hair's different. You're much heavier in the picture. I can't accept this. Store policy. No ID, no alcohol." It was a lie. Maya's photo was from 2 years ago. Her hair was straightened and instead of in its natural curls now, and she had maybe lost 10 pounds since. It was unmistakably her. "Brenda, is it?" Maya said, reading her name tag, her patience thinning. "That is my ID. You can scan it. You can even call a manager if you're unsure. But it's me. I don't need a manager to know store policy." Brenda snapped, her eyes glinting with a strange, righteous power. She pushed the bottle of wine to the side, away from the other groceries. "I'm not selling you alcohol. You can either pay for the rest of this, or you can leave." The coded language was as clear as the store's windows. "Asterisk, you don't belong here. I have the power, and I say no. Asterisk." Maya felt a familiar, hot-cold flush of humiliation. She saw the other customers looking away, pretending not to notice, their silence a form of complicity. "You're refusing to sell to me because of my race," Maya said, her voice low and shaking with a mixture of fury and hurt. "I'm refusing to sell to you because you have fake identification," Brenda retorted loudly, playing the victim. "This is about the law. Now, are you going to pay for your groceries or not? You're holding up the line." Defeated and publicly shamed, Maya made a split-second decision. She wouldn't give this woman a single cent of her money. She left her full car of groceries on the conveyor belt, turned and walked out of the store, Brenda's triumphant smirk burning a hole in her back. Tears of rage stung her eyes as she reached her car. She wasn't just angry about the wine. She was angry about the casual erasure, the public accusation of being a criminal. She pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling. She opened Yelp and started typing a scathing 1-star review, detailing the entire incident. It felt good, but also felt small. Inadequate. Then she had another idea. She opened her contacts and scrolled to a name she hadn't dialed in weeks. David. David was more than an ex-boyfriend. Their breakup had been amicable, driven more by conflicting career paths than a lack of love. He was one of the smartest, most principled people she knew. He was also, as of 6 months ago, the new owner of a local grocery chain after a successful tech exit. She couldn't remember if Fresh Fare was one of his. He answered on the second ring. "Maya? Hey, this is a surprise." His voice was warm. "David," she said, her voice cracking. I need to ask you a question." David listened in silence as Maya recounted the story, her voice steadying as she relayed the indignity. When she finished, he let out a long, slow breath. "Brenda, older woman, looks like she sucks on lemons for fun." David asked, his tone now cold and professional. "That's the one," Maya confirmed. "Stay there," he said. "I'm 10 minutes away." "And yes," he added, answering her unasked question, "Fresh Fare is one of mine. I'll meet you at the entrance." True to his word, A black SUV pulled into the parking lot 10 minutes later. David stepped out, looking every bit the young, successful entrepreneur in a dark sweater and jeans. He gave Maya a quick, reassuring hug. "You okay?" "I will be," she said, feeling a surge of vindication. They walked back into the store together. The scene was almost unchanged. Brenda was still at her register, now bagging groceries for an elderly white man to whom she had just sold a six-pack of beer without a second glance. David and Maya walked straight to her lane. Brenda looked up, her smug expression faltering for a second when she saw Maya, then hardening when she saw David, whom she didn't recognize. "You again?" Brenda said, her voice dripping with contempt. "I told you, we don't serve people with fake IDs. You can't come back in here and cause a scene." "I'm not causing a scene, Brenda," Maya said, her voice calm and clear. "I'm here with the owner." Brenda let out a short, derisive laugh. "The owner? Mr. Peterson is in his 70s, sweetheart. You can't just bring in some random guy off the street." David didn't say a word. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet, but he didn't take out a credit card. He slid out his driver's license and held it up for Brenda to see. His thumb covered his photo, but leaving the name and address clear. "My name is David Chun," he said, his voice low but carrying an immense weight. "And according to the registration for this building and the business license filed with the state, which lists my home address here, I am the owner of this Fresh Fare location and the 17 others in this chain." Brenda's face went through a rapid, terrifying transformation. The smugness evaporated, replaced by confusion, then dawning horror, and finally, a sickly, pale shock. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Now," David continued, his gaze locked on her, "I want you to look at my friend Maya's ID again. And I want you to tell me, to my face, why you believe it to be fake, why you happily sold alcohol to the gentleman before her and the one before him, without what appeared to be any scrutiny at all." The entire store had gone quiet. The other cashiers had stopped scanning. Customers were staring. Brenda's hands were shaking. She looked at Maya's ID, still on the counter, then at David's unwavering stare. I just, it was store policy," she stammered, her voice a faint whisper. "Store policy is to check ID for everyone who appears under 40, David corrected, his voice like steel. "It is not store policy to racially profile customers and accuse them of felony identity theft. That's not policy. That's bigotry." He picked up Maya's ID and handed it back to her gently. Then he turned to store manager, a nervous man named Keith who had just emerged from the back office, drawn by the silence. "Keith, Brenda is suspended, effective immediately. Please escort her out. We will be conducting a full review of her conduct and the conduct of every employee in this store." He then addressed the gathered staff and customers. "What happened here today was unacceptable. This store and every store I own will be a place of respect for everyone. That is not a new policy. That is the only policy." As a weeping Brenda was led away by the mortified manager, David turned back to Maya. "I am so sorry that happened in my store," he said, his voice softening. "It's not your fault," Maya replied. "But thank you for having my back." "Always," he said. He picked up the abandoned bottle of Pinot Noir from the counter. "Now, let me ring this up for you myself. And it's on the house. Forever." He walked around the counter and with a few efficient beeps scanned her groceries. It was a small, symbolic act, but it felt monumental. The power had been restored, not just for her, but for every person who had ever felt small and voiceless in the face of such casual cruelty. Walking out of the store for the second time that day, the weight was gone. The humiliation had been replaced by a sense of justice. The system, for once, had worked. But as they reached their cars, David's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, his expression turning grim. "What is it?" Maya asked. "Text from Keith, the manager," David said, holding up the phone. "He says Brenda is already on the phone with the corporate HR department, and she's claiming we racially targeted and harassed her. She's filing a wrongful termination lawsuit." Maya stared, stunned. "She's suing you? After what she did?" David gave a weary smile. "A cornered rat will always fight back. She's not going down without a fight. and she's going to play the victim to the very end. The lawsuit was a masterpiece of distortion. Brenda, through a slick lawyer, claimed she was a dedicated employee of 15 years fired for conscientiously enforcing state alcohol laws. The court documents painted David as a ruthless, New Age owner who had fired a loyal employee to appease a difficult friend, playing on stereotypes of the angry black woman. The local news, always hungry for a contentious story, picked it up. The headline read, "Grocer fires longtime employee over ID dispute. Lawsuit alleges reverse discrimination." For a few days, the court of public opinion was divided. Online comments were a war zone. David felt the pressure. His other store managers were nervous. The brand he was trying to build was being tarnished. "We have the truth on our side, David," Maya told him over coffee. "We just have to prove it." "The truth is a fuzzy thing, he said. She said case. David replied, frustrated. "It's her word against yours." The judge might see a successful young black businessman and a long-time white employee and rule on sympathy. But Maya, an architect, was a master of building things from the ground up, including a case. "It's not," she said, she countered, "stores of security cameras. With audio, it was the key David had been too stressed to see. He immediately filed a motion to obtain the store security footage from that day. At the pre-trial hearing, Brenda sat with her lawyer, looking confident in her victimhood. Her lawyer presented his argument, painting a picture of a hard-working woman being steamrolled by corporate power. When it was David's lawyer's turn, he stood. "Your Honor, the defense would like to submit Exhibit A, the complete, unedited security footage from the 10 items or less lane at Fresh Fair Market on the date in question, from 1 hour before the incident to 1 hour after." Brenda's confidence shattered in an instant. Her face went pale. The judge approved. The courtroom's video screen flickered to life. There was no sound at first, but the visuals were damning. They saw Brenda wave through 2 young white men with six-packs after a cursory glance at their IDs. They saw her sell a bottle of whiskey to an elderly white woman without asking for ID at all. Then they saw Maya approach. They saw Brenda's body language change. The cold stare, the aggressive posture. The audio kicked in. The entire courtroom heard it all with crystal clarity. They heard Brenda's flat, demanding ID. They heard her declare the license a fake. They heard her loud, public accusation. They heard Maya's calm, then shaking, responses. They heard the venom in Brenda's voice when she said, "You're holding up the line." There was no ambiguity. There was no conscientious enforcement. There was only raw, ugly prejudice, captured in high definition. When the video ended, the silence in the courtroom was absolute. The judge adjusted his glasses, his face stern. "I've seen enough," he said, his voice echoing in the quiet room. He looked at Brenda and her lawyer. "This lawsuit is not only without merit. It is a frivolous and malicious attempt to abuse the judicial system to cover up blatant racial discrimination. The case is dismissed with prejudice." He turned to Brenda. "Ms. Reynolds, you are fortunate the defendant is not countersuing for defamation, which, based on this evidence, he would almost certainly win." It was over. Total, unequivocal victory. Outside the courthouse, David and Maya faced the reporters. "This was never about one bottle of wine," David said, his arm around Maya's shoulders. "It was about dignity. It was about ensuring that everyone feels safe and respected when they walk into one of my stores. Today, the system worked. The truth was heard. The story flipped. The new headline celebrated the victory. Truth prevails. Grocery owner vindicated in racial profiling case." A week later, David didn't just send out a corporate memo. He launched a citywide initiative. He partnered with Maya and local NAACP chapters to create Project Fair Checkout, a training program for retail employees on unconscious bias and the real-world impact of racial profiling. The opening session was held in the community room of the very same Fresh Fair Market. The new, diverse staff was there listening intently. Maya stood at the front, not as a victim, but as an educator, turning her pain into purpose. After the session, David and Maya stood by the now infamous checkout lane. "Strange how things work out," Maya said, looking at the conveyor belt. "It is," David agreed. A terrible thing happened here, but something good is being built from it. Something lasting. He took her hand. How about we try that dinner again? I'll cook. Maya smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached her eyes for the first time since the incident. I'd like that. They walked out of the store together. Not just as exes who had found their way back to each other, but as partners who had fought for justice and won, leaving a legacy of change in their wake. If you have stayed with us to this point, then subscribe and share to join our fight for a just world. Stay tuned for what's next. The end.